Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Earthen podcast. Again, I'm Scott Howard with earthenhand.com. And today, my guest is Mr. Art Zipperer, who is a
Zipperer, actually.
Dowser.
Zipperer.
Oh, Zipperer, excuse me.
Yeah, that's okay.
Art Zipperer. And
no one ever gets
you're
it
a
right.
retired teacher, is that correct?
What's that?
You're a retired teacher, is that correct?
Yes. Uh-huh.
And professional dowser. And, we just somehow I found out about you, I think through the internet, and I contacted you. And you so graciously and generously gave me a bunch of advice and even gave me a pair of dowsing rods, some copper dowsing rods that you had made. And since that time, I've been practicing with the dowsing rods, and we've been chatting, and I've been just very enthusiastically learning from you. And we're just a state away, so maybe one of these days we'll get together in person, Art. But
Yeah, really.
it's great to have you here on the show. And just thank you so much for being here. Thanks for your time. And
My pleasure.
there's a lot of very curious students out there, and I think people really need to learn about what you're up to, and that they can even do it themselves.
Sure. Most. For instance, there are a lot of dowsers in Great Britain and Australia and places like that. I mean, European countries, you can find them more so there than in this country. I think this country, you think you can, I don't know, buy your way out of everything, and just buy something. Vermont, but certain states you would think you could find them. They can't seem to find them. I think a lot of them are guys like me, have just been around a while, either probably don't have websites, and if they do, they're probably selling stuff, and they're not for hire so much to speak, so it's very hard to find them anymore. I think after the pandemic, and a lot of people stopped going to these conferences, and a lot of them, if you look at them online, they're all old folks. So young people, I don't know. You don't really see that many, quite honestly. All the ones that I've ever met have been always older than me. But, I had very long conversations that would last for months off and on for people who had really difficult problems, and we're working out solutions when just the common, ordinary solutions don't necessarily work for everybody. Mostly they do, but some people live in very awkward spots on this planet and need a lot of help.
Yeah.
I was just helping a lady in Vermont, and owns this huge farm and several homes and properties, and it took me a little while, a couple of weeks, to figure out what was going on with them beyond the norm. And at the end of the day, we got it all fixed for her. She's happy as she can be under her circumstances. So that's what I enjoy. I like the ones that have problems that need some specifics. A lot of times people have properties or big farms or subdivisions or ranches. They have problems with their animals, or they have problems with tenants, and there are solutions for a lot of these things that people just aren't aware of. That's all. I just happen to be, because I've been doing this for 20 years.
Yeah, tell us how. Again, remind me how you originally got into dowsing, and what that was like for you.
Well, mine is kind of an unusual situation. So without any depth of explanation, I can just briefly tell you that I had an encounter with a being higher up on the food chain than us. And when you encounter that, your worldview changes, and you realize you don't really know anything about actually reality. So after that episode, the next day I contacted a total stranger, but somebody who knew about this sort of thing, and she emailed me back right away and told me what I needed to look for. She said, you need to look for intersecting ley lines in the space where this happened, and you need a dowser to do it, and you can probably do it yourself. And so I fashioned a pair of dowsing rods, found a tutorial online from one of old Slim Sperling's old students, And literally within a half a day, I was out there giving it a go. So like I mentioned to you earlier, I took right in the middle of my second step, my rods just flew right open. And I knew, wow, I can do this. And so I did it every single day for 5 years. And every time, as time went on and on and on, I learned I could do more and more things. I kept trying and testing myself, looking for this, that, and the other. Also found out that I could do it remotely. I could do mat dowsing. I can, like somebody has a problem with their house in Australia, I can douse their house in Australia, tell them what's going on, problems with their animals, that sort of thing. So then over the years, you take classes in animal communication, journeying, shamanistic journeying. Dowsing classes, even though I've been dowsing for quite a long time, I find going to these classes, regardless of what they are, I'm interested in the broad spectrum of things. So I go to these classes, or used to, I haven't been to them in years, only because not so much what the people are having to teach is for that oddball question that comes out of left field. And that's the question that has the answer that exactly why you showed up, although it may have nothing to do with the workshop. The person answered something that you would have never known any other way. Only you get these things with these odd questions that come out of left field. And those are the moments that I live for. I went to actually a Slim Sperling dowsing thing about, 18, 19 years ago. It was a weekend in San Rafael. And somebody, he was, the second day, he was actually out in San Rafael Park practicing the dowsing, and he had it all marked out so people could go by and find what they were looking for. And he could say, this, that, and the other, kind of fine points of dowsing, manually in person. So he was showing his way of clearing things with earth acupuncture, it's called. Different kinds of forms of acupuncture. They can be done with standing stones and whatnot, but this is a simple method. I sent you a tutorial, I believe, that shows how you can take these, 18-inch copper or steel rods, welding rods, really, uncoated welding rods, and put them in the ground perpendicular to the energy line you're looking for, upstream, and it will block it for about 110 yards downstream, Well, he was, I'd been doing that, like I said, literally every day, because I lived on like a postgraduate worthy property that was filled with every kind of earth energy you can possibly imagine. Aquifers, ley lines, fault lines, on and on and on, all that stuff. And anyway, he was describing his method, and then he shows how he bends the ends over, and he literally puts it into the ground like a staple with a hammer. And he said, and then just the end of all that, he just said, or you can just do it mentally. And we'll see, I'd never read that before, and I never heard that before. And again, I've only been doing it for a year, but I've been doing it every single day for a year. So I thought, well, that's worth the price of admission right there. That one sentence, that was worth 2 days worth of sitting there. And I heard that. So I went off from the group, and I found a sidewalk that had this intense stream of ants, not just your basic little ants, but I mean, like a super highway of ants coming and going, and they're just in this tight line. So I found out what was driving the ants. Ants are one of those creatures that are driven by geopathic stress. Whenever you have ants in your house, or ants in your yard, or across your patio, or your bed, or in the closet or something, they're not there looking for anything. They're there because that's what they do. They follow geopathic stress lines. So if you have ant problems, that's what you have. And typically, more often than not, it's underground moving water. That's the most strongest and the most attractive to the animal kingdom that likes that sort of energy. So ants are the prime example. And, they've been around since before the dinosaurs. So they don't really need anything in your house. They're only there because they're just doing this thing that they do. So anyway, here's a stream of ants going, and I just put my metal rod down. You don't have to do it across the ants. You can do it several feet away from where they are. It doesn't make any difference. Laid it down, and the ants start to lose cohesion. They still stay on the path, but now they're not like this tight line. Now they're just kind of starting to drift, and the line gets looser because that energy is no longer there. Chemical signature they lay down, information they pass on. That's still there. But the prime directive, why they chose this route, that's been removed. So it's kind of confusing. So then I thought, okay, so he says you can do this mentally. So I picked the rod up, the line of ants, go back down to a tight line again. And then I put my hand down on the ground. I say, what is it that I say? I say all energies radiating from this geopathic zone are now blocked at this spot. As soon as I said that, ants started losing cohesion again, started getting rangy. So then I said, I lifted my hand and said, this energy line is restored. Ants went back to the tight line. And so this time I didn't put my hand down the second time. This time I just looked at the spot and I said that same sentence, boom. Ants started losing cohesion. Shows that your thoughts are just as strong as steel or copper or iron. They really are. You just have to learn how to go about it. Anybody can do it. Any of your students want to go out, especially if you've got an ant problem in your house, give it a shot.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not a dowser and you can't determine from which end to the other, if you watch an ant line, it's never straight and it's never curved. It's always this way. It's like a broken stick. It goes off in directions. That's because they're jumping from one line to another where they intersect and overlap and cross. So you can, oh yeah. So anyway, at your home, you can do this sort of thing. You put a coat hanger, you know, the long end of the coat hanger down.
Yeah.
And all you want to do is get the ants to kind of like lose cohesion. Once you do that, then you know you've found the right spot, you know. You know you've found upstream. If you do this downstream, it doesn't make any difference. But upstream, you have to be from the energy line. Everything flows directionally, you know, whatever, east, west, north, south, any combination thereof. So anyway, if you do this in your house, lay down, let's say, coat hanger or anything, piece of pipe. It doesn't make any difference what the metal is, as long as it's straight. Can't be wonky, can't be an extension cord, anything like that. You just lay it down straight, pretty close to perpendicular to what you see. And once you see the ants start doing their thing, you know, losing cohesion, then pick the rod up and do what I just said. Put your hand down and then do it without your hand. So anyway, once I found out I could do that, that opened up a whole world right there to me, because I lived in such a difficult property that I would wake up with screaming nightmares sometimes at night. And so I'd have to douse to see where the energy line was coming from. And then I would just clear it. I would just look out in the yard and say that this energy line is now, you know, terminated at the property line. So I would do everything at the property line. And then the next day, I'd go out and I put a metal rod in its place. This is before I invented the harmonizer and learned how to do other kinds of things. But this is all doing it mentally and physically. You know, the iron rod, your thoughts are as strong as the iron rod, but they're not as long lasting. Iron rod might last you, you know, years and years and years, where your thought might last up to a couple of months in the ground, depending upon how volatile your area is in terms of earth energies.
Wow.
So there you go. So you start learning things like that, and after a while you start compiling and, you know, doing what you do, look for answers, dowse for history, on and on and on, you know. So it goes as deep as you want it to go. I mean, if you just did water alone, looking for water, I used to do that for people, but I don't find it very interesting. So if you go out and find some underground water, you know, with your dowsing rods or ever, you know, once you learn how to do it, or for those who already know how, go out and do that. And then you can ask all these questions. Is the water polluted? You know, if it is, this water, can it be cleaned? Yes. You know, how deep is it? Can you get it up? Does it do 5 gallons a minute in flow rate? Questions like that. So you can get so specific. You can get it down to an inch or less if you want. I doused a lady's house around here who had a aura. Have you ever seen these aura machines? It's a computer. You put your hand on it and everything, and then they're really, really cool.
Yeah, I've seen that. Some of them are gas discharge visualization.
Yeah, hers was, I know, you just put your hand on this and you held something in the other hand, and she asked you a series of questions. You have a camera on you, you know, and at the end you get like about a 15-page report. And it's really amazing and accurate. So, and she was a very intuitive woman that did this. We exchanged services. That's what a lot of people that do these kinds of oddball skill set, you know, trade services with people. A lot of massage therapists are into that, you know. Uh, there's a whole host of people that are into that. So trading services. So anyway, these aura machines are quite spectacular, and it was absolutely dead on. And I still got all that report, and that was been many, many years ago. But I was dowsing her house in exchange for services and doing property clearing for her. And I said, "Oh gosh, you've got this underground stream right off the back here. You know, it's like 25 feet down." She said, "Actually, it's 26 feet down." I said, "Oh, really?" Yeah, because some plumber had dug up that stream like a year before because it was causing problems underneath their house. You know, so there you go. I said it's probably 20. I said 25, and he said 26 because are you dowsing to the top of the stream or the bottom of the stream? I was just dowsing down until I hit the stream. So
Yeah.
that meant that it was a foot deep.
Yeah. That's amazing. Yeah. Well, you get this, confirmation from other information, and then also the visualization that the ants provide. They're showing the invisible. They're making it visible, and I just think that's
Yeah,
an
I
amazing
say it's like
tool.
blowing smoke on a laser beam. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what the insect world will do that for you.
Yes, definitely. I mean, it really all comes back to observation of nature, and I mean, you can learn just infinite amounts just by watching insects. Like,
Oh yeah,
a lot of times,
absolutely.
we even work with the orientation of the ant hill according to the sun. It's different at different locations, and but it's always the optimal solar orientation. So you can do a bunch of calculations and figure out your passive solar house orientation, or you can look at an anthill at that same location. And oftentimes their entrances will be right there on the, east, southeast,
No kidding.
that area, southeast.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Just
But,
don't build your house on it. That's all. That's the main thing.
but yeah, I followed your instructions. I practiced dowsing for many days, just kind of thinking about ley lines and magnetism, and I walked around my house. And what was interesting for me was that um, I could never really confirm that there were any lines running through my house. So I never felt like I needed to put down any iron rods yet. I mean, maybe I'll find them later, but I haven't found any of those yet. And then I practiced the looking for water, and at first it was kind of easy to doubt myself, because I would walk around near a stream or something. Well, then the rods would cross because I'm, walking into a stream. And then I worked with the garden hose, as you mentioned. So I was thinking about water, thinking about looking for water, and I walked over a garden hose as I'm watering the garden. And sure enough, the rods did cross. It wasn't super strong or dramatic. It wasn't like, it was more just kind of subtly. They just did their thing, but I wasn't telling them to do that. They just did it. And so I definitely see a lot of potential. I think I need a lot of practice, but I just find it fascinating, and I know it's an essential part of basically what I'm trying to do right now is continue my 20-year career in teaching folks about bioarchitecture, showing my students that they can use some of these skills, or they can work with someone like you to properly site and develop their buildings and their land, and making sure that they're in harmony with those invisible magnetic forces. I think it's one of the most important things.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It helps you with sighting places as well, but it also helps you connect with the property. Now, this is the most important thing about all this kind of stuff is you're trying to connect with the property that you're living on and the unseen realms that are there that you do not want to disturb and ask permission for this, that, and the other. You want to be careful not to step on the toes of the unseen. And there's several ways of clearing a property. I mean, you can do it with the rods. That works really, really well. I did that for years and years and years. You can also do property clearings. That's something else I've done for a long, long time. That's where you work with the entities that actually are the ones that bring reality to form. They're the form builders, the form carriers, the form builders, all of the intelligent energies that can control every blade of grass, every leaf on every tree, everything in your yard, in the atmosphere, everything above it and below it. There are nature spirits that are in charge of all that kind of stuff. So if you learn to engage with them, that's and dowsing is a great way to start. Dowsing is really just muscle testing, but with a device. This is you use your hands. That's deviceless dowsing. So it works just as well as dowsing rods, but it's not as efficient for the kind of things we're talking about. Energetic. You can find something energetically, but finding the parameters of it, exactly what to do, it's not necessarily good for that. It's great for asking questions. Also great for talking to nature spirits if you can't hear them. Just use your nervous system. Most people don't use their nervous system for anything other than just, an animal that's being alive. See, do, touch, don't touch, smell, don't smell, taste, sight, and all that. But the nervous system is one that is what you're trying to develop. That's what you're doing with dowsing rods. You're working with your nervous system so you don't get in the way of it. That's the only hard part about dowsing, is trying not to get in the way of things. People that ask questions, for instance, they ask questions that are too complicated. Nature doesn't need all that complication. Much smarter than you give the natural realms credit for. Then they'll know what you're thinking about, honestly. And whatever solution they come up with is better than anything you ever thought of. And I've been doing this a long time, and I'm still surprised that when I do these kinds of things, talking to the spirits for whatever, that you don't have to give them much information, definition, direction, purpose. That's what all you got to
already know. Yeah.
And then they know just from that. I'm living right now in a place called Old Town up here in Washington State on this little island. And I used to live in Northern California on the water in earthquake country. And there was a section in town called Old Town. I thought, I always wanted to live down in Old Town. I had a house somewhere else, but I thought Old Town was so cool. It was bars and restaurants and music venues and all that kind of fun stuff. But it was also kind of seedy at nighttime, not a great place to walk around necessarily in the evening. And so at the end of the day, the house I'm living in now for the last, 16 years, I think, I found through using these processes. And where am I living? In Old Town. You see what I'm saying? I am living in Old Town. I didn't ask for a place in Old Town. This is where I always wanted to live, was a place called Old Town. I didn't ask to live here. I was just looking for a house that was appropriate. The house showed up, still here, and it's in Old Town. Just a different Old Town. But see what I'm saying? They know what you mean if you're just clear about your definition, direction, and purpose of what it is you're doing. So,
yeah,
this whole thing about property management, you locate the property. You can use these processes to locate a property, and then you can also go there and check it out with dowsing. You can also, check out this, that, and the other, find out what kind of history the place had. A lot of places, I dowsed a lot of battlefields, a lot of old battlefields, between the Civil War, Mexican-American War, all the wars, all the intertribal wars, all the gold rush killings and slaughterings and whatnot. I lived in areas. If you live on the coast, because you're close enough to it. Anywhere up and down here the West Coast, gold rush days, they just took out all sorts of Native Americans and just took over and ran people off and did massacres and things. Well, all of that's absorbed in the soil. It's in the trees, the atmosphere, the ground, and you can remove all of that stuff in like 45 minutes, and it'll all be gone. And you can't even. I don't care. You can douse yourself and you can clear, and you can do all the kinds of things with the metal rods, and you can do all sorts of stuff. But until you've done a process like that, you can't even imagine what the difference is. Everybody can feel it. It's like this weight is lifted off your back. It's like, God almighty, I can't believe it. I actually saw my redwood trees out in the backyard, and I've been, like I said, I've been doing all this dowsing clearing stuff for several years before I learned how to do cleansing processes. And when I did that, I went out back, and my redwood trees out back literally were glowing. You could see them like they were backlit with a spotlight. You could see the aura of the trees that brightly. and then they just settle back down again. So you remove that kind of stress from your environment, nature spirits happy, insects, animals, plants, trees, cats and dogs, people, everybody just gets better. So anyway, all this kind of stuff started off with dowsing and learning how to do it.
Fascinating.
And you just
Yeah.
kind of build your skill set over the years, and then you can just ply your trade as necessary here and there, depending upon the property. Not all properties need clearing, but mostly they do. Residues of illness, anger, fights, bad energy, lousy house guests, food poisoning, everything that goes in your pet died.
Yeah.
All that's grief. Everything's just sucked up into everything. If you bring home anything from a flea market or a antique shop, do a clearing on it. I brought home a ring box one time, nothing in it, just a ring box. And I opened this thing up, and I just got this cold shiver that ran down me. And I thought, well, that's good, mainly because the name inside the ring box was almost identical to somebody I knew. I thought, what are the chances of that, 4,000 miles away and 50 years ago, and there was that name inside this box. So I brought it home, and it turned out it was haunted. That's why the chill ran up and down my spine.
Okay.
So you got to make sure you let your guard down. Even somebody like me has been in this for all these years. Every once in a while, you just you let your guard down. You get complacent, and that's what can happen.
Yeah, I remember I had you douse remotely a piece of land that's actually right next to where we're hosting the upcoming workshop, and you had reported there was a former battlefield there.
Yes.
And so, I mean, if, for example, if I purchased that land, then we could clear that energy.
Yes. Not an entity, just residue of bad energy.
Yes, energy. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. What is the gambit of the services that you offer? You do remote dowsing, you do in-person dowsing, and you do the clearing, and you also sell a harmonizer device for the home, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes, home, and I sell larger ones that I don't have one sitting around here, I don't think. Yeah, these ones that have a copper coil on them that are directional. That is, when they're face up, they're doing their job, and they're face down, they turn off. I always thought whenever you provided a device like that, you need to have an off switch on it. It's important, especially if let's say you're practicing dowsing and you buy one of these devices, and then you have this thing where you're not going to be able to dowse in your yard or anything. You have to go outside of your parameters in order for it to work, because you've turned off everything in your parameters. So you just turn the device over and it turns off, and then you can go about your business dowsing and then turn it back on again. So, or some people are super sensitive and maybe they need a week or so to get used to it, So it's nothing you can feel. It's just kind of a pretty little thing that sits there and then it works. But I've known people that have spent, $800 on a glob of glass, that does similar things, but you can't turn it off just in case. And then you're out $800 if you can't. I've had to have people literally, they had devices that interfere with my harmonizers, like their device didn't work. But if you bring in one of my harmonizers, it wouldn't work either, because it kind of fouled the whole property. So I told them, remove it at least a mile away, take it to work with you and leave your device there. Sometimes they have to dig them up. Some of these things are buried in the ground, and then it works just fine. So there's a lot to figuring out problems for people, because you don't know what they've done before they contacted you.
Right.
Some people have so many things and so many different devices and doodads that they buy thinking it'll all, solve the problem. They kind of all can possibly interfere with one another. They're not compatible.
Right. It's not always more is better.
Yeah, what you want is just what's right for your situation,
Right. So
yes, my services, when I started Northwest Dowsing, it was a property clearing. That's all I did was clearings. So I'd remote dowse a place, find out what's wrong with it, do a remote clearing, and that was that. Then when I came up with the harmonizer, and that's not the same as a clearing. That just removes all the geopathic stresses from an environment, and I mean all of them. And but it won't clear, trauma, history of battlefields and bad energy and whatever. whatever happened on that property. It could be a mortuary, could have been a church, could have been a rectory. It could have been all kinds of things. You never know what a place has been. It could have been a boarding house, rooming house, stagecoach stop, anything, over the years, depending upon where you live. I've only dowsed one or two places in Texas that weren't former battlefields, for instance, So there's some places that are just full of that sort of thing. All around Portland there, you've got all kinds of, history from the old Shanghai practices they used to do. And all those haunted tours you have, the tunnels and whatnot, where they used to squirrel people away, and stick them on board these ships as slaves. All that. At one time, half the population of Florida was all slaves. You can't tell me that's just reeking with bad energy. So, but anyway, so you got to start somewhere. So the best way to start is, learning how to douse a property, find out where to place buildings, how to eliminate all of these kinds of things you want to eliminate. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you don't want to eliminate all the bad energy, depending upon what kind of crops you grow or things, some crops like bad energy or negative energy.
Right.
Not bad.
Yeah.
Just
or
negative.
You're building a temple, a lot of the temples in the world, the most famous and amazing ancient temples, they're directly on negative energy cross lines because you go there for an energetic reset or rejuvenation, and it's actually healthy to be there for a short period of time.
Yes.
But if you were to sleep there every night, it would kill you.
Absolutely. And every spiritual site in history, every megalithic structure, all of these things, they're all built. Every cathedral, ancient cathedral, all spiritual, religious places are all built on these lines. All of them. It's just the way it is, because they use that energy then through the architecture and the building materials, usually containing quartz, limestone, that sort of thing. Combinations of these different kinds of building materials amplifying these energies. Gothic architecture wasn't invented just because it's cool. It looks good, it's based on the Vesica Pisces, and it's all designed around capturing these energies for a more profound spiritual experience.
Mm-hmm.
So
yes, cathedral and cathode. It's kind of the same.
Yes.
Root, and I remember you had sent me some photos of your energy emitting pyramid shape.
Oh yeah.
You build, and you're making these wooden pyramids, and you're coating them with a quartz sand that's glued on to the wood. Mm-hmm. This is right in line with what I'm studying right now in bioarchitecture, and basically the capacitance and energy generation from the quartz materials combined with the form of the pyramid. And you're using a 76.345 degree pyramid, I believe, a tall pyramid. All of that stuff combines to make, I think it's drawing energy from the air and the earth and the plasma that surrounds everything, and then it's concentrating it at the tip of the pyramid. Is that correct?
Yeah. The tips are all coated in 24 karat gold leaf. So all the small pyramids is a pyramid array of pyramids, and then there's these 3 wooden structures over that. And then that all is designed to go over this labyrinth that I built, a long time ago. I got the idea of, I wondered what a labyrinth would be like if you could flow water through a labyrinth shape. So I did a chart. So my first one I built was a Chartres labyrinth, and labyrinth from the church in Chartres, and pass water through it, through a water pump, and it does amazing things to the water. It's the way I look at it is a labyrinth, when you have water flowing through it, is the path of the wild river. It energizes water the way a wild river would. And if you use a labyrinth the way you use a labyrinth to amplify your thoughts, whatever you're there on walking the labyrinth for, if you're looking for inspiration or healing, whatever your deal is, the way you traverse a labyrinth, you come in contact with these thoughts over and over again as you're slowly progressing toward the center, the heart of the thing, and then back out again. So there's a way of your own energy being amplified and sort of restructured and put back into your thought matrix to get healing, whether it be mental or physical or spiritual, whatever your deal is. That's the way I think labyrinths work. So I thought just flowing water through a labyrinth is like in lieu of a body going through there. And it does the same thing with the water. It will just keep building up the energy field, and it'll go up and go on and on and on and on. I had one that ran for 4 years and went for hundreds of miles. I have one right behind me in the corner back there that's been running forever. And I do something special to the water so that it stays good for years and years. I had this experiment, let me put it this way, and I wanted all of my labyrinth experiments to be on a 2-foot square thing. Everything I could do, this was my footprint for it, 2 feet. So everything I wanted to do had to fit into 2 feet. And water pumps and the small little things, nothing, no big deal, very simple. If you look at my website and go to Water Labyrinth on Northwest Dowsing, you can see how to build your own, for instance, how to do it. But with this labyrinth running all the time, when you freeze water in the refrigerator for ice cubes, it grows these sometimes up to 3-inch tall spikes coming out of the ice cubes. You turn the machine off, it doesn't do that. And with the machine running, it affects the structure of the water around. It's affecting the structure of the water in your body, it's coming out of the pipes, but you can just watch it. Every morning I go down and open up the freezer to get ice cubes for a drink of water. And here's this, this like little forest of crystals. They're amazing. I mean, they look like long terminated quartz crystals stuck and frozen into the water. That's what they look like.
Wow.
And this is just from water flowing through a geometric pattern. So
I gotta ask, is the water in your labyrinth, are you putting any kind of minerals or like a rock dust in there or anything like that?
No, you don't want that, because even you can't use tap water or anything like that, because number one, it calcifies. All the mineral deposits will get on. I just use vinyl tubing, it'll calcify and turn cloudy. And so you have to use distilled water. And I used distilled water for years, and it would run in these labyrinths for usually about 2 to 3 years without even any degradation whatsoever. But then you start noticing little bits of what look like mold or something, little dark spots here and there. And so then you clean it out. And so what I decided to do to help it stay cleaner longer is there's this stuff called Ellis water. The guy invented this distilling machine that changes the molecular structure of water by heating it and cooling it really fast, several times a minute. And it goes into a big tank and it gets heated and cooled over and over and over again. I built one of those actually because I like to build this kind of stuff. It's very cool, works wonderfully.
Wow.
So I put like 2 ounces of Ellis water in my reserve jar. Let's just say here's a labyrinth, okay? It's a 2-foot square area. The labyrinth is built into this wooden thing. It's about 1 inch thick. The labyrinth is in there, surrounded by the wood, and has a top on it, lid. So it's just flat. It looks like just a board almost, really. But if you took the top off, you could see there's a labyrinth in there. And sitting on top of that is a jar, gallon jar. So the water goes, you fill up the jar with water. And when you turn on the pump, it pumps it out of the jar, goes into the labyrinth, comes out of the labyrinth, goes to the pump, back into the jar, and on, just a continual loop from in and out of the pump and in and out of the jar and through the labyrinth. The jar that's holding the water, I play sounds through with headphones off the little MP3 player. There's certain kinds of frequencies that I play to the water, and I've changed it over the time, but it all works pretty much the same. Right now I'm playing the frequencies of inside a cumulus nimbus cloud on a perfect day. That's what the frequencies I'm playing on. Somebody figured out how to scan a cloud and turn that into sound.
Wow.
That's what I use. And it's very cool. And so that's the only amplification and modification that I make. playing sounds. You can also do words, a la, what's the guy's name for the Japanese? Emoto, was that his name?
Yes, Emoto, yeah.
Emoto. Uh, and work with water in that way as well. So you can show it, patterns like the flower of life, and you can play these sounds, whatever the sounds you made. The sound of the sun, NASA recorded the sound of the sun. They had to speed it up like 80,000 times or something to be able to hear it, but you can do that. So anyway, these kinds of things, the water responds to all of that. You don't want to just make stuff up, if you're using geometry, it has to be correct geometry. If you're going to use sounds, you have to be good sounds, quality sounds. If you're going to do this. So I have these kinds of things running all the time. I made a water energizer that uses the exact same labyrinth principles, but in the middle is a column of twisted copper tubing that a gallon jar sits in. So the water on its journey goes through these tubes, and they spin as they go through these copper tubes. And I hooked them up parallel. There's two tubes, two paths of the water. You can have a series by feeler, forward and backwards at the same time, or parallel. I do the parallel. And so you're spinning the water all through these copper coils, and it goes around and around. You run water down a copper pipe and connect it to ground and a voltmeter, and it creates a voltage, just water flowing over a pipe like that, piece of copper. So anyway, I can't be near the machine when it's running because it puts out quite a magnetic field. So I have to keep it out in the garage. And, in the wintertime, it freezes out there. So I have a styrofoam kind of like enclosure with a light bulb that keeps it from blowing all the tubes off, when they get frozen. So
yeah.
So anyway, so you put a gallon of water in and run it for 90 minutes. The energy field increases 1 foot for every minute that it's running. So when you get through, after you've learned to douse, you can take a glass of water and go out in your yard, pour it, a glass of water out of the water that's been energized for 90 minutes, and you douse, you'll look for the edge of that energy field of that glass of water, and it'll be 90 feet away. So you're drinking a glass of water that has an energy field that's 90 feet. If it's Ellis water, you're drinking something that the hydrogen bond has been changed in the molecular structure of the water, and it's very hydrating, gives a lot of energy and stuff like that. I don't drink distilled water, but it's part of the machine. I always put mineral drops in with distilled water if I'm drinking it. So I don't use it as a water distiller, but as a way of changing the molecular structure of water so it's more useful.
Yeah, so that's maintained even after you add some salt back into it.
Oh yeah. So I add some of that Ellis water, like I was mentioning, from that machine that changes the bond of hydrogen. There's a hydrogen oxygen bond angle, and that water runs for years without getting dirty. It's just a couple of ounces of it in. I don't know how much water is in one of my machines. Actually, it's less than a gallon. I mean, maybe about a gallon altogether, including the reservoir. But just the tubing. So anyway, yeah, there you go. There's all these kinds of things you can do. And how do I find out how big to make something? How many circuits? How many turns? I asked with my dowsing rods. I need to design something. I get the general information, and then I look for fine points, and I use my dowsing rods to do that. I ask. Once you invent something, there's a deva that's in charge of it that knows more about it than you do. So a nature spirit, right? So there's the water labyrinth. There's nature spirit attached to that. If you want to know to change something, you ask the nature spirit, and it'll find out. It'll tell you what to do, and along the lines of what it is you want to do.
That's good. That sounds like a very useful tool for designing things.
Yeah, but it all comes down to learning how to work those damn dowsing rods, or missile testing, or both, whatever. If you can missile test, you can dowse. And if you can dowse, you can missile test. So it's all kind of the same thing. Just one uses a device and one doesn't.
Right.
So these are things beyond just dowsing for water and energy lines. You can learn to communicate with the beings on your property and if you make them happy, boy, I'll tell you what, life is sweet. Things happen that are just supposed to happen when they happen. Quite honestly, it's miraculous what happens.
Sure.
You just get a sense of confidence about your environment.
Sure. Yeah, the elemental being happy is like that's why the crops grow.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I read your article you sent me about the muscle testing, and you were talking about different mudras, like touching the thumb to different fingers on the hand, it creates a different electrical current. So this is completing one current, the pinky, then this one's completing a different current, and you can use those as different tools, right? For get
Yeah,
different
I just
information.
use a thumb and little finger
Hmm.
on my non-dominant hand, and then take your, I'm left-handed, so take your thumb and forefinger of, for me, the left hand, and the thumb and little finger on the opposite hand, and then you slip the thumb and index finger in between the other two fingers, and you ask a question. So when you do this, you're creating a circuit. If the answer is a positive one, you want to try to break open this circuit. If the answer to your question is positive, that circuit is strong. Your fingers will stick just like magnets. If the answer is negative, then boom, they'll pop right open without any effort whatsoever. And
That's
after you've been
fascinating.
doing that for a while, you just kind of get a feeling for the subtleties of it, just the
Okay.
subtleties of it. And
Sure. Sure.
if you're going to ask something about your own personal health, do I have this? Are these symptoms indicative of, that's no good. You don't want to do that. You can do that maybe for other people if you have that kind of, capacity, but on yourself, you don't want to ask those kind of questions. Now, am I allergic to this, milk thistle or something? Or am I allergic to this supplement? Then you can hold it in your hand. You'll hold it in my left hand. And I ask, am I allergic to anything in this
Sure.
capsule?
Sure.
And if it says yes, then I don't take it. And if it's
Actually,
no,
see this pendant here. I can't remember the name of the inventor, but there's a Japanese fellow who invented these, and I bought it at a trade show one day, and I wasn't planning on buying anything. Believe me, I was just checking everything out, and these really nice Hawaiian people were selling these, and I said, well, why is it so special? And I said, well, it's a composite. It's made of like 50 some minerals or volcanic minerals, and it empowers your biofield. And I
oh,
say,
well,
okay, well, how do I know it works? Because the thing's not cheap, and they're
yeah,
like, oh, we'll show you. And they basically did muscle testing on me. I think it was like holding my arm out or something, and they pushed
yes,
my arm down. And the first time, it was pretty easy to push my arm down. The guy was a huge Hawaiian guy. He's real strong. He's pushed my arm right down. And the next time they set this pendant, uh, I think they just set it right on the ground, right in front of my toes, or something like that. Or maybe I was holding it in my hand, and they did it again, and it was like I was Superman.
oh yeah,
And when I felt that, I mean, experiencing is believing. And then I said, well, yeah, there's something going on here. This is weird. And I said, this is something here. So I bought it. And ever since I wear this every single day.
there you go.
And, I take it off every now and again to clear it, or I wash it off with just plain water. Um, and I'll set it on my altar and clear it. But overall, I think it does something. I wear it when I practice martial arts, and it makes me stronger. So there you have it.
Well, if you ever go to a NAET specialist, they're acupuncturists that are for allergy elimination.
Sure.
And I
Sure.
had 15 of those treatments years ago because I was living in an environment it was highly toxic to me. So you lay down on a table on your back and you hold your arm up and then straight up in the air, and he's behind you, and he has this huge array of these these little little glass vials that have a liquid inside, and each one is imprinted with a frequency for a specific, stainless steel, rubber, whatever. And you hold that, over your abdomen right here, and you got your arm up in the air, lying on your back on this table, and he's leaning into your arm like that, And if you're not allergic to it, your arm, he was a big man, and it's like you said, he came around, he was like sweating, and I said, are you really pushing all that hard? He says, I'm leaning into it with my whole body weight, and your arm is just like a pipe standing there. So it's the same with your arm. That's how you can tell if you're a geopathic stress line. Have somebody stand on a geopathic dowse for any geopathic stress line, put somebody on it, have them hold their arm out in front of them, stand behind them, push on like that, and have them move off the line, arm will be stiff again.
Right, right.
So there you
Yeah,
go.
to bring it back to architecture again. My good friend Dan Winter described to us that you need to make a magnetic map of our bedroom, our house, our land, and arrange things magnetically in a fractal.
In a fractal?
Yes, in a fractal, so that everything is balanced. And once you do that, then everything can flow. But if you're not able to do that, I mean, you have to sense the magnetism first, right? To be able to arrange things. But apparently, once you get used to it, a lot of folks can sense the magnetic lines and such without any instruments at all. They just feel it. Maybe the hair on their arm stands up or something like that. So there's a lot of science behind it. Obviously, we've got a lot of studies on geopathic stress. There was whole towns in England and in Germany, I believe, where everybody was getting cancer, and they were trying to figure out why. And they figured out, well, there's an underground stream under here. There's an underground river, and there's just a lot of geopathic stress. And I believe there were certain towns in Germany, once they figured out what was going on, they actually relocated the whole town, brick by brick. They rebuilt the town.
That was committed.
Miles away, and then everything was fine.
See, if you knew how to do these techniques, you wouldn't have had to, if they knew how to do these techniques, you wouldn't have had to do that, Because like one of my harmonizers, for instance, just the basic one will, a 2,000 foot, 2-story house on a, 5,000 to 6,000 foot lot. That's kind of like typical. It's all cleared and it's spherical, or actually toroidal. Toroidal. It's a hard word for me to say. So it's a sphere that emanates from this one little device into the ground, into the atmosphere, all the way around. So it's full-on protection, and it's quite. And if you do property clearings, it's the same thing. Absolutely the same thing. You can set the parameters when you do a property clearing for how deep you want it to go, how high you want it to go. All kinds of things. You're living on the side of a mountain, you're going to have different kind of issues than you are if you're on on a prairie somewhere. So, locations about everything. But I'm curious as to how do you use a fractal to align all the magnetic energies in a space?
I don't know yet. I
haven't
gotten that far.
That's the magic question.
Yeah, it's more about the arrangement of the objects in the location of everything.
Not like feng shui, something else.
It is definitely related.
Yeah.
Feng shui and Vastu, it's all intertwined, and I think that's what they were talking about, just using a different language. And so now we're using more of a scientific language, but it's really all the same
Yeah,
stuff.
It really is all the same stuff, regardless of what name tags you place on things. As a matter of fact, this house I'm living in now is an 1890s Victorian, and it's settled, and you drop a handful of marbles and they'll just run in all directions. So when I moved here, I had a very difficult time adapting to this space, because my electromagnetic sensory mechanisms in my body are very highly sensitive. So magnetic fields, I'm just really highly sensitive to. So there's a thing, and I learned how to do feng shui back in California because that's a skill set I thought I needed to know. Now, I don't know something like a feng shui master would know, but I know enough to balance a space out simply, So I'm sitting right now in line with 3 doorways from 3 different rooms, like shotgun. And so anytime you have 3 doorways in a row like that, the energy is palpable when you're sitting like in this chair, which is right square in the middle of these 3 doorways. And I couldn't sit here for very long. I didn't know why that was. And then I realized, okay, I've got to fix this house. This is after doing a clearing and all that kind of stuff. I still find it difficult to live. I did a clearing before I ever moved in. So I found out that you need more help sometimes than that. It depends on the design of the structure you know, the angles. It's circular. Does the front door look straight through the house, right to the back door? Like a lot of people like, you know, where they can see through to the backyard from the front door. Very bad energetically because the chi just passes through the house like a freight train. So anyway, feng shui is a simple way of balancing these energies to make a space more habitable. Even if you do these other processes and it's still not completely clear of negative effects on you, check for the feng shui. Once you fix a space, you know, unless you mess it up and you clear all the bad energies on top of all of that, then you're good to go for a good long time. You can just kind of, unless you bring something home like the ring box or something weird.
Right, right. Well, it's not something I studied a lot of, but I'm very curious, and I started reading a little bit about, you know, feng shui and vastu. But my partner is from Taiwan, so she's more familiar with, you know, the Chinese tradition, and
oh yeah,
she's like, oh, this is common knowledge over there. You know, you can't have
yeah,
doorways in alignment, and you know, a lot of other details. But what I find interesting is there's a lot of overlap with, you know, some of the feng shui principles, and then some of these things that you find you know, discussed in like Phil Callahan's book called Paramagnetism, for example. I mean, he talks about, so the living things are diamagnetic, and then some of these rocks are paramagnetic, and so there's this push pull, there's an interplay of energy between them, and so the arrangement of objects in a space, you know, like a Zen garden, for example, you have the rock and the pond, you know, and the turtle, and it's like the energies between these things, it can drastically alter the feeling of the space, and there are ways to measure it. Even, you know, you can use meters to measure the capacitance, and then you can see where the energy is actually flowing through invisibly through the air.
I like it.
Yeah, Phil Callahan measured capacitance using an antenna that was made of a piece of organic hemp cloth soaked in seawater.
And what did it do? There's an antenna?
Yeah, it was an antenna to measure the capacitance of the air.
Oh.
Yeah, or otherwise you'd soak it in human sweat. So apparently, like, hemp had like the highest energy vibration of any cloth, and it was perfect for this job. And then the salt was necessary, and the human sweat had the right salt content, or the seawater had the right salt content for the job. So it was possible to go around. They were traveling through the Amazon jungle, okay, and it was possible to measure the capacitance of the soil, let's say, the magnetism in the soil, and with a certain signature in the soil, they could predict whether the next tribe down the river was going to be hostile or friendly.
Really?
So there are these energy signatures in the environment that clearly affect the humans and the way the humans are thinking and feeling and acting.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's where I think getting rid of geopathic stress and also properly clearings together remove those energies. Yeah, you can your pets will be the first ones that'll tell you when something feels better or not.
Right.
They'll respond. You know, I've had it's a little bit off the subject, but I have had a number of ghost animals come to this house. Three cats, 1, 2, 3 cats and a rodent. And my other cat that I had, big old Mancoon, was acting so strange, you know, just acting so strange. So one day I never even thought about animal ghosts, something I never really thought about. Human ghosts, yeah, common as dirt everywhere. They're all over the place. But animal ghosts I never really thought about. I never encountered one, so I didn't think about it. So now all of a sudden, one day, I saw footprints walking across my bed, just from an invisible cat. You can watch the footprints
Wow.
across the bed. I thought, holy cow, that's something I've never seen or thought about before, you know? And I've been doing this stuff for 15 years at that time, never came across this before. So anyway, because I can see things, I just sat down and I closed my eyes and I scanned the house. And sure enough, there it was, sitting right in the chair that my other cat used to love and wouldn't go in anymore. This cat was taking up all of his spaces. Loved that bed, loved this chair, loved a certain and all that. And I could see it sitting there. And when you douse an animal, you can see it looking back at you, which is very interesting. They know that somebody's looking at them, especially cats. Cats are really like that. So I realized, oh my gosh, you know, cats aren't bound by geopathic stress like human ghosts are, earthbound spirits. Animal spirits just go anywhere. But the thing is, when they're dead, they just act like they did when they're alive, you know? So I just tell the animal, you know, be here tomorrow morning and I'll send you home. And so the next morning I'll go and they'll be there. You know, you close your eyes and scan the house to make sure they're still there. And they understand English, or any language, whatever your language is, your animal is going to understand it. I don't know how, but they do. So I've had this happen a number of times now, and I just tell them, man, you're here tomorrow morning, and I'll send you home. And the home they can understand. You don't have to get spiritual with them because that's a waste of time. You can't do that. But that's the thing. So human ghosts you can kind of negotiate with, but an animal ghost, yeah, you can't really talk you can't talk on their level. So or at least I can't. But they listen to me, and then I do a property clearing as long as the animal's there, and then they go home. You know. So recently, I found a rodent in this house because my cat, another cat, the other one passed on. So this is another one, and she was acting kind of strange for some reason. And so I found out there was a rodent, ghost rodent, that lived in the house, and so I cleared that. And then the cat's behavior changed the very next day. So you can see it in the animals. You're always asking for, a lot of people want proof. How do you know this, that, and the other? Well, you know it because of the results that you get. Some people are living in another city, and I gave them a harmonizer because they had because it was a new house or something like that. I can't remember why I gave it to them, but I did. And so I was over, and then they became friends. And we were talking, and a couple of years later, and they said, well, how do you know that, you know, your harmonizer does this, that, and the other? And how do you know that, you know, on and on and on? How do you know this stuff? You can believe it, but how do you know it? Well, the results. I said, for instance, you know, this, that, and the other. And then one of the things I said, and then if you have ants in your house, they'll all leave. And then they perked up. And they said, you know, we've been having ant problems for years in this place, and they were all gone. And we couldn't figure out why they were all gone all of a sudden. I said, well, there you go. There's the proof. You want to know how it works or why it works or does it work? You had ants before, now you don't have ants. So rather you do it with putting a rod out in your yard or do it with a harmonizer or do it mentally. Gone is gone, however it gets gone, you know.
Yeah.
I don't know of any other ways to do these things. Those are the 3 ways that I know how to do these things. And so there you go. They were, all of a sudden they were on board where they weren't before. So everybody needs some new information now and again to shake up the old thought process. I know I do.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of invisible stuff. And I think if people just thought about how much invisible stuff is going on, even the known scientific invisible stuff that we can measure, you know, then, and they think about it a little bit more and realize, wow, maybe we should consider that there's invisible forces involved. Yeah. And then
there really are.
your mind a little bit. Well, yeah, we should think about that.
But that's true, you know, it's and the more phenomena you have happening in your space, wherever that space may be, you know, the more likely that you are to have these kinds of issues, you know, things that are underneath your feet or in the atmosphere or things that surround your property. So if you really want to learn how to live in balance, you know, it's one thing like what you do is designing structures for the space and the materials and for the purpose and whatnot for different cultures, which I think is incredible. This is just something that everybody's ancestors, our ancestors, no matter where you go in the world, their ancestors, I don't care what culture it is or what country it is, they all know this stuff or they all knew this stuff. We just lost it now because we think you can go buy something or take a pill and, you know, whatever, and it'll all go away. And it's not going to go away. It's just, there's so many ways of doing it. You know, you can move, if you want to move one underground stream, you can move that one stream if you want to. You can neutralize it, or you can make it bend around the house. You can do there's just a million ways of doing all this kind of stuff. I understand in Belgium from some lady, feng shui master, who told me that in Belgium, they'll pay $1,000 to come out to their house to douse it and fix whatever their issues are, you know, farmers and whatnot, that their livelihoods depend on the quality of their land, you know, or their animals. So not I'm thinking telling people to go out and charge $1,000 for doing stuff, you know. I'm just saying, depending on where you are in the world and the belief structures of these people, and they know what a real dowser can do, you know, in terms of solving the problems with their stock or their crops or something like that. I mean, I had this, I've dealt a lot with horses over the years and cleared big structures filled with animals. And you can go around stall to stall and say, this horse has got that. This horse has got problems with this. It's one place I was doing that they said no horse would go near this corner of the entire arena, you know, for some reason. And I found out why. And when I got through with it, the lady called me, you know, a couple of weeks later, she said, geez, there's actually a horse went over there and went to sleep in that area, curled up and went to sleep in this area. They wouldn't go before. They would shy away. So it could, you know, it'd be dangerous for riders, for instance. It's like having a bird come out of the rafters if you're a rider. You know, your horse can be here and 8 feet to the left, just like that. So anyway, so there you go.
Yeah. Wow, that's fascinating.
I go out to these properties and the animals know what you've done. You know, I've gone out to some of these properties. Right. They have barking dogs or what, this, that, and the other, you know, and you go out there and there's no barking. The horses will all come up to you, say, oh, there's that guy, you know, they'll come over there and they just seem to flock around you, you know. So if you're a farmer or if you have livestock and whatnot, you want your animals to be like that. I mean, they're going to gather anyway because you've got the handle on the food bucket, you know. But there's another way they can gather around you that has nothing to do with food. It's a kind of a way of appreciation. They know these things. They know what's there the day before and what's not there the next day. And they can usually read people pretty well.
I find the animals usually know what's going to happen a couple hours in advance.
They do.
Yeah, they're pretty smart. That's why we keep them around, right? They're like a community member just to give us more information.
That's right. They're more aware than we are, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
They have a tighter focus. Our focus has been out there.
So I wanted to ask you, we might have talked about this last time, but have you ever heard of Dr. Ibrahim Karim and biogeometry?
No.
So, you know, I've been going to this group that's dedicated to studying biogeometry and subtle energies, and honestly, it's great exposure. I learn a lot, but a lot of it's just way over my head because I never have taken an actual biogeometry course. I have a couple books I've been reading. But yeah, Dr. Ibrahim Karim is an Egyptian architect, and he started working with subtle energy at some point, and he realized he could actually, you know, harmonize things like Wi-Fi or cell phone signals. And
oh wow,
so they're, you know, they have a number of harmonization products as well, but some of the proof is in the, you know, the results. Like we said, there was a town, I think it was in Switzerland, where it was a very rural place, very traditional, and then they installed some big I don't know if it was a cell phone tower or something like that for the town, you know, some years ago. And everybody started getting sick, and the animals were sick, and the people were feeling weird, and everyone realized, well, it's got to be this new thing that we just installed, because this never happened before. And things
cell phone tower.
Yeah, things were really off, and so somehow they had connected with Ibrahim Karim, and he came over there and studied the area, and they do a lot of testing using pendulums. So they'll ask questions with pendulums, but he was able to figure out how to build some harmonization device. I think it was out of plexiglass, actually. Certain geometries pretty small thing. I don't think it was very big. And he put that in the room with the new tower that they built at this town. And then within a day, all the negative effects went away again.
Oh,
So
nice.
it's by these, a series of stories like that. There's a lot of them actually,
Was it
where
a passive device?
yeah, it's not powered or anything.
Hmm.
It's just the shape of it. And
A lot
so
of people
after I
over
heard
the
these stories, I started paying more attention, and I have some biogeometry tools also in my home and a pendant that I wear. But it's something to look into. It's something I'm also looking into and studying.
Well, there's before I became a dowser and got interested in that, I was like a lot of people, made a lot of orgone generators, you know.
Yes, orgone. Yes.
Yeah, a lot of orgone generators, and they're classically used for neutralizing cell phone towers. Cell phone towers, and also if you live anywhere near a substation, an electrical substation, there's voltages in the ground there that is very detrimental to cattle and certain other animals and whatnot. Voltage in the ground is not good. So there was a lady in California who was living near one of those. And so I had fixed up her whole house, but the substation back there was a whole different, ball of wax. You can't clear those with rods or clearings or whatnot. They just sit there and emanate their energy. And so I made her a orgone generator just for her yard and her property. And she said 2 weeks later, all the weeds in her property died and just left the lawn. I thought, whatever, that was a pretty interesting, affirmation that it had this physical effect on the property that you could actually see. Plus it, calmed down the energies quite a bit. So I always recommend anybody that can even see a cell phone tower anywhere from their house, get themselves or make themselves a small orgone generator, and it will neutralize. Those things have an effect of up to about a quarter of a mile, just a
Yeah,
little
yeah,
small ones like that. I
sure.
give them away sometimes. I send off packages to people that have troubled properties beyond the scope of this, that, and the other, and I'll send them a care package sometimes. I don't charge them for any of that. I'll send duplicates, I'll send like an orgone generator, I'll send this, that, and the other, and just to help these people out. There's more than one ways of doing things, and there's no one answer for everything. That's why it's kind of good to, over the years, to build up a skill set, different approaches and methods, because every place, just like every person, is different. Mostly they respond about the same, but sometimes they really don't. Some places can't be fixed. I mean, it's very rare, but occasionally you run across a property that just can't be fixed. Some kind of weird anomaly in the earth or who knows what. My property that I used to live on, where I learned how to do all this stuff, attracted ley lines to it. Mostly negative, and they would come and they would go. Some would stay, some would come. I watched them appear over course of time. I would discover one in the yard that'd be a foot wide. The next year, it would be 3-4 feet wide. And then about 2-3 days later, it would be 6 feet. Most of them about 6.5 feet wide. I found them as wide as 20 feet wide somewhere around here when somebody was having me look at a place when they were trying to buy a house, and a 20-foot wide ley line running through it. So anyway, I figured out the reason. I had to figure out, because the ley lines were on the property, wherever they cross, it creates a portal, which you do not want on your property. You don't want portals on your property, energetic portals, not good, especially ley line portals. So I had them in the house, and I had them in the yard, and they caused me lots of problems. You don't really feel them so much like you do underground water, but because of their power and what they attract to them, you don't want them around you, unless, again, it's a spiritual space or something like that. But typically don't want them around. So I figured, what is making this happen? Because this is why this thing kept coming back, over and over again, and creating unbelievable havoc. So I figured you can't just. I had to figure out why they're there in the first place. Why are they coming and going in this particular spot? Why is that? I mean, it just wasn't me, of course. It would just travel on for everybody else. But I was only interested in me. So I figured out it was an anomaly. I mapped out as an anomaly, and it was down near this place in California where all these rock slides on the Eel River Valley. And it's up in the mountains where you could only get up there like a pack mule or a helicopter. You know, there's no way to go there and fix it. But it was something in the earth emanating from this particular area that was the bane of my existence. So I figured what I had to do was I needed to change the energy state of my property. I'd only been doing this stuff for less than a year. But I was a big researcher, always have been a big researcher for whatever. And so I thought, well, how can I change the inner state of my property, the energy state of it? Because this was the problem. It was like a magnet to these negative energies. And so I did. I figured out how to do it. And it took me a couple of weeks to build the devices. I needed 13 of these devices. I dowsed, and I also dowsed every single spot in the yard where they had to be planted in the ground about this deep. And sure enough, never had a problem again. Never had a ley line, never had any more visitations, you know. But it was very difficult. It took me almost a year to figure that out because I didn't know anything. I was just like anybody else coming to this, you know. I never had any interest in any of this kind of stuff. Not until I was like in my early 50s when I started having these encounters. And I'll tell you what, you have one of those encounters, and your main goal in life is to never have another one. That was my goal. I never want to have another one. I had 4, and after the 4th one, I finally got it right, and that was the end of it. But you know,
I've heard stories like that before,
but yeah, when you meet something higher up on the food chain, it changes your worldview, your whole entire outlook on existence. It just is out the window. When you realize that we're just toddlers up until this point, when you realize what's really going on around you, you know. Oddly enough, this is one of those things you could only see with your eyes closed. It'd be right in front of you with your eyes open, you couldn't see it. Close your eyes and it's standing right there. So I've had that happen some other times, not with something like that, but in different realms. And it's frightening and it's scary, and it's also you got to know stuff more than what I knew to deal with things like that. So
I'm glad you figured it out. Yeah.
Well, yeah. Sometimes some things just take time. You know, sometimes you just have to figure things out. So that's, you eliminate everything else and you go for the jugular, and if it works, it works. So it worked, and there you go.
So the weirdest thing I ever experienced was I was in my early 20s, and I put in a full day. I was working conventional construction at the time. I was just carrying boards around all day and heavy lifting, you know. I was completely exhausted, and I came home from work and I was just doing some Tai Chi, you know. I was just standing there, just breathing, and I was just completely relaxed. And you know how your muscles get really relaxed when you work them really hard?
Mm-hmm.
I was totally exhausted. And then I had my eyes closed. And then my arms started dancing around. I mean, my arms were doing all kind of cool stuff, and I wasn't doing it.
Wow.
Like, the signal was not coming from my brain to tell my arms to move at all. And so it was
these are like programmed movements.
It was a huge surprise.
Like Tai Chi.
I've never experienced anything like that before or after that. It was just that one time.
No kidding.
And, it was just something that was happening, and it actually felt really good. I mean, it was very pleasurable. It was like tickling almost, you know, because it was just, my arms were just moving and doing their thing. And I, ever since then, I always wondered, you know, how did I do that? And how could I do that again? That was cool, yeah. I don't know how to do it again.
Yeah, once the fear factor goes by, you think, oh, I can try that again with a little more.
As soon as I started getting excited about it happening, I got too excited and then it stopped.
Oh, yeah.
So I came out of the meditation, but yeah, anyway, that was just a side note. But I had one question for you about the, you know, dowsing for the ley lines and correcting them to bounce them over the house, like you said, using the copper or iron rod in the ground. So, I mean, it's all fine and well to, you know, go out there and look for them and find them and then block them. But like you said, they can emerge or disappear, or maybe some people just aren't very good at finding them. So I had a thought that, you know, couldn't you just if you spent the money, couldn't you just surround your whole house with a series of rods buried in the ground?
No, you can't do that. Number one, the angle is very important. You have to be right at perpendicular across an energy line, whatever it may be.
I
If
see.
you're more than like 2 degrees, 3 degrees off, it won't work. It has to be 90 degrees. It'll do just a little bit of that, just a little bit of that. But if you go here, it doesn't work. Got to be 90. So, and you don't want to create a Faraday cage, because
Right.
we've been talking about negative Earth energies. Well, the Earth also radiates plenty of positive Earth energies too. You can go out in your property and douse for positive energies. You want to find a place to put a meditation spot, or this, that, and the other, something, maybe bird feeders, animal feeders, any positive energy spots. We have one of those out in the yard out here. Well, just one. We had a deer we have a lot of deer around here, and we came back from a trip, and right in the middle of coming home, when we were opening up the curtains and everything, there's a deer out there giving birth. And they give birth in this one little spot that won't grow anything. And it's a positive, it's the intersection of two positive Earth energies. I don't know what they are, but they're just positive. And the deer are always drawn to that for sleeping and napping, to give birth, all that kind of thing. But it won't grow anything. So it's not necessarily good for the spot in terms of lawn or anything like that, but it's great for the animals. So you don't mess with it, So anyway, you can go out there and douse for positive energies just as well. I found a lot of public sculpture sometimes. It's either around here, but a lot of Native Americans, and they know these things, and will cite sculptures on these lines, but also these kinds of properties and sculptures, let's just call them, public artworks, can draw positive energy to them, because of the nature of why they were put there to begin with. So, there are lots of ways of drawing good energy to your property, as well as expelling just the bad stuff. So, or I would say not bad stuff, but stuff that's not healthy for us, or most mammals, really. These energies aren't really healthy for any really mammals. I mean, cats like it. Cats will lap that stuff up. They love bad energy. But if they spend too much time over it, it'll make them sick over the long run. My old dog died of cancer because of where she was sleeping. It was right over an aquifer. And so that's what got her in the long run. So you don't want that to happen to you. So that's why it's a good reason, just for physical health and mental health, to have all of these energies neutralized that are go against your health. That's why people do it.
It's fascinating. Very, very interesting. Like, it makes me think of, nomadic people. They move around and they move their house every so often, and having a teepee or wigwam or something. It kind of makes sense, because I mean, one, you're closer to the earth, you can sense the energies more, but the fact that you're getting a variety of energies throughout your life. You might sleep here and then you'll sleep over here, and it gives you more variety. I think that that must be healthy in some way.
Oh yeah, and teepees are circular, and place the entrance the way you want it, compass directionality wise. You can set up your living space just the way you want, while you're there, and then move it on and go to another place. I always thought teepees were kind of cool, natural chimneys, and
Yeah. A lot of
domes I'm not quite so sure about. I think domes have got some strange energy in them, so I've never really dowsed around a dome, or I've been in several domes. Had a uncle that great uncle that owned a 36-foot dome on a property that they used as a party house, kind of, and some other people that have them. I've never lived in one or stayed in one, but I understand those energies can be kind of weird in domes.
Yeah, apparently the hemispherical domes are really bad because the spherical shape is charge isolative, right? So it's like a Faraday cage. And if you put metal in the dome, it's even worse. But even just the shape itself, being hemisphere or spherical, it's isolating you from the cosmos. So you want something more like an egg shape, or parabolic, or quaternary arch. It's a little taller, and
like a multi-frequency dome.
yeah, like egg shapes are the best, clearly. And the egg is the origin of everything. It's very good geometry.
Yeah.
I'm actually working on a temple design right now, and have been for months. And I'm just letting it come to me slowly. But intuitively, I decided that the interior of the meditation temple should be an egg shape, and the exterior would be a pyramid shape.
Huh?
So I'm not 100% sure now if I want to go with the four-sided pyramid with the 76-degree at the base, the tall pyramid, known as the Russian pyramid, or I thought of another configuration that would be a five-sided pyramid
Wow.
where each of the sides would have a phi golden ratio relationship between the base and the side of each triangle. So the base of the triangle being 1, then the side of the triangle will be 1.618, and then you make a pentagon. So then the egg shape would sit inside of that, maybe with the lower part of the egg shape possibly dipping down below grade. Um, and Yeah, the idea of the temple is, it would be all of high dielectric materials. So we're using a type of masonry, like a cement material with high crystalline sands, like a basalt sand, quartzite sands. And the idea is that it would be kind of plasma projected, like maybe this would be a good space for astral travel, or um, just very strong projection of intention. I'm not sure yet, but I think that's where we're going. But if you had any additional ideas or things to think about, I'm all ears.
Well, the only thing along those kind of lines, I've read about somebody. I used to buy some ormus from this guy, and he charged up all of his ormus in tetrahedron, star tetrahedron. He had them made out of copper, and you had the complete star tetrahedron, and he had this right in the center of it. And so before ever anything went out, it was always charged for X amount of time in this tetrahedron. I think there might have been some frequencies that he played as well, that enhanced it. And anyway, everybody thought his stuff was really the best because, I mean, that's the shape of our energy field, right? And then the energy field of the planet and of the solar system and the universe is, that's supposedly a star tetrahedron is what our energy field is, two counter opposing rotating triangles. Those are what, three-sided, right? Star tetrahedron is three-sided, each triangle.
Yeah.
So anyway, I don't know a whole lot about that because my the things that I've always done have always been circular or round in nature, which is more difficult to make and build things that are round, but that's what I've always done. It's worth the extra effort. So I'm not really quite sure, but so along the lines of what you're discussing in terms of the egg, of course, star tetrahedron is not a bad idea for an energy center.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, then there's the toroid also. The toroid shape was very high on my list when I was brainstorming for this, and I kept drawing these pictures of like the person meditating in the middle of the toroid, and then I thought, well, it might make a lot of sense if you had built a toroidal room around a tree, even. So there's another idea, but yeah, I'm actually going to build it. I'm collecting materials, and I've been talking with some folks who might want to host the first building of this, and it's interwoven with the Therify healing device, the cold plasma therapy device. Therify.
I saw pictures of that, and the one that has like the lavender lamps on either side of a space, kind of like the old Lahusky coils kind of idea. We have these two coils on either side and someone in the middle, and then these frequencies that are, transposed, I guess.
Exactly.
So this is like the replacement of those coils with these. They look like thyotron tubes. I don't know if you ever heard of a thyotron tube, but they're beautiful. I used to be a gyro compass technician, electromechanical guy, And these thyratron tubes are what balanced out the gyro compass, and they would just pulse, as a just as a way of keeping things normal, kind of like, yeah, like part of it is a circuitry. But anyway, the color of these bulbs are just fabulous. You walk
That's
into
like
it,
a bright pink color, and
it's an ice blue. It's
oh,
a
okay,
beautiful royal ice blue is best I can describe it, and they
okay.
pulse. It's kind of like the pulse of the machine.
I think
I used to love those.
The Therify tubes are generally kind of like a pink or like orangey sort of color.
Yeah,
Um, there's some kind of mixture of noble gases inside of a sealed glass container, and then
this is the device you're talking about.
yeah, the
Yeah.
electrodes go in there, and there's a Tesla coil type thing in the box of the machine, the guts of it, and that powers the electricity to the electrodes. And this was a device that's invented by Paul Harris and Dan Winter.
This is
And
a therapeutic device for human
yeah,
beings.
yeah, so it will rejuvenate the bioenergy field, and it has a lot of healing effects. I mean, there's like physical and emotional, spiritual healing effects. A lot of people report pain reduction or
Wow.
complete removal of pain. So people who are in severe pain oftentimes get a lot out of this, and they'll go use the Therify for 3-4 times a week in order to uh, reduce their pain or eliminate their pain.
No
Um,
kidding.
yeah, so there's that. It's great.
I think
It's
I've seen
called
a picture of that.
cold
Cold
plasma
plasma.
therapy. Yeah.
Yeah, I saw a picture of that once. I think you probably told me where to go to find it, and I looked it up. And I thought, oh, this looks very cool. And I don't know if do people buy them or they just go to a practitioner.
Yeah, I mean, you can buy one. I think they're a little bit over 20,000 at this point.
Guys.
There are practitioners, people who have them and will, rent them out. And there's someone here in Portland who has one,
Oh wow.
a couple people, and so I'll go and use it. I've used it maybe 10 or 12 times so far, and sometimes it's pretty subtle, like, oh yeah, it's good, and then other times it's just completely saves the day. And I came out of the Therify session and I was just giddy. I mean, it was like I just smoked a really good joint or something. It was very strong, and I was so happy. And I know that it does something. I know that it works. I've experienced like a samadhi type state in meditation.
Hmm.
Usually right after the device switches off, you sit in there for maybe 15 minutes, then it switches off. I mean, it feels cool when you're in there, but usually for me, it's right when it turns off and I stand up, then I notice that my aura is huge. I feel like I'm 10,000 feet tall or something. So there's
Wow.
something happens, and it makes the plasma beings and the elementals are all happy around you too, and it definitely has these effects. So knowing that it worked, that's why originally I wanted to make the temple, was to offer something that might work independently but could also work with the Therify device. So you would put the Therify device in some little niches on either side of the egg-shaped room, and and then sit in the middle in there, and maybe some augmentation of the
Oh
device just
yeah.
by the capacitance of the Therify temple.
That sounds like a great idea. Like the whole space would be charged, and working for you in
Yeah,
all aspects,
exactly.
geometrically as well as energetically. Yeah, that sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, it fits pretty nicely with some of these experiments you've already done with the pyramids and the quartz sand and all that stuff. So,
Yeah,
um,
yeah. I built I was talking about the labyrinths that I built before, where that's the whole idea of me building these pyramids, because I'm not a pyramid guy, was to place it over my labyrinth and turn the labyrinth on, because pyramids were always built over, well, I would say most always built over aquifers or moving underground water, because the energy structure is so strong. I think they use the pyramids for, I don't know what they used it for necessarily. I don't think anybody really does, but if they used it for energy, for whatever reason, energy production, and then you're taking just the natural earth elements and using, ways of configuring the structures that they're flowing under to take that energy and focus it toward whatever end. I don't think anybody really knows because they're just so ancient. We can only speculate with our modern knowledge, but we don't think the way the ancients thought. You know, they had a different concept of reality and
I think they were
natural
multifunctional.
world than we do. Ours is
There's
a
a
bit
lot going on
skewed.
there. Yeah, there's a negative ion wind that comes off of the pyramids that's measurable, and it will make the seeds germinate. And it's the signature of the energy at the Great Pyramids is very similar to therapy, actually, and it's used for seed germination, and it will cause like 100% germination rate. You know, so those kind of things are pretty useful if you want to grow
Oh
your own
yeah,
food.
agriculturally.
I've also heard that the pyramids will cause the underground river to spring up. It'll cause the water to come to the surface. Uh,
Oh,
so there you have it. You know, when you study like what Sam Osmanagic wrote about the Bosnian pyramids and so on, then there's also a lot of healing effects. Like if you go around the pyramids or inside of them,
hmm.
there's a lot of reports of healing effects.
Yeah, that's what they'll say with labyrinths as well. Is if you build one on your property in conjunction with the nature spirits on your property, that is, they help you site it, tell you what size it should be, which stones to use if you're using stones at all, or what kind of stones to use. I mean, you involve them in the process of building your labyrinth, that it will draw water and ley lines to it, just because it's the right geometry built with the right stuff with the right intention. The
Yes.
intention is everything. You know, you can say words in a ceremony and nothing will happen, but if you say the words with intention, it makes all the difference in the world. And so intention is everything.
Beauty. Outstanding. Well, this has been really fascinating. I absolutely
I've enjoyed this. Thank you.
art. Yeah, very cool. We'll have to do this again. I'm sure we
Sure.
will.
Be happy to.
Yes, I'm very happy. Very, very happy to be your student and your friend. And thank you again.
Well,
Uh,
thank you. Likewise, I'm sure.